I heard you on the podcast and we wondered whether you'd like to be marooned on an island in the Maldives for 7 days. Hell yes, I'd like to do it, but I'd really like to bring 20 of my mates. Can you survive without anything, with the clothes you're wearing? And by the end of it, 7 days in, people didn't want to leave. Wednesday night, I pulled the plug out of my Wi-Fi. I just have every Thursday where I have no technology. Looking at our phones or watching Netflix or ordering things on Amazon is soothing, but that phone is only increasing these levels of anxiety that we all feel. I'm moving into my primal age. I'm now going to hunt for my food. I'm going to gather water from the river. I'm going to heat myself with fire.
You consumed something that took you on a trip, but in a safe location with the support of people who were experienced.
The shaman pours you a cup of this liquid and you get asked, do you want a small, medium and large? And typical Dan, I was like, just give me the large. I'm like the mad scientist of adventurers. It's really fun to do these things and to see what happens to people. I love this kind of concept of like, yes, you can go and scale Everest, or you can swim the Channel, or you can run across Iceland, and other people have done that, whereas I'm the only person that can set foot inside of me and inside of my own mind and explore what's going on there. And it's been beautiful. It's been sometimes dark, sometimes scary, sometimes completely and utterly wonderful and joyous, but I think that's adventure for you.
A quick thank you before we start. Many of you know I share my Gusto referral link on this podcast. And honestly, I didn't expect so many of you to use it. A bunch of you ended up with cheap groceries and I ended up with some free credit. So it's been a lovely little win-win all round. If you're new to the podcast, let me tell you about the deal. Gusto is a recipe box service that delivers proper ingredients to your door, alongside easy to follow recipe cards. I've used them for years and find them incredibly useful when life is a bit hectic. They provide you with all the food you need to cook delicious meals, and they now have hundreds of recipes available each week. You can find my referral link in the show notes, and if you're a new customer, you'll get a pretty hefty discount. Last time we spoke, you arrived at the recording 2 years ago after having quite a profound weekend in just a few days before, which you couldn't really kind of comprehend in that moment when we never spoke about that experience in our recording. But I wonder if we can go back to that place right now and what was happening at that time 2 years ago when you arrived at our last recording.
Yeah, so 2 years ago was the beginning of this kind of healing journey I've been on. And kind of finding myself, accepting myself, allowing this kind of true version of myself to shine through. And so when I came to do the last recording, I had just been on an ayahuasca kind of retreat, healing journey. Ayahuasca is a very strong psychedelic, but it's done in a kind of wholesome, spiritual way. And it's all about finding out a little bit more about yourself, and I think about the world and about the way you frame your life and all these sorts of things. So it's an absolutely mad experience of that probably isn't even comprehensible unless you've been there.
So you consumed something that took you on a trip, but in a safe location with the support of people who were experienced.
Yeah.
To go deeper, I suppose, into your own self.
Yeah, exactly. I think there's 10 people who are just there playing music. They're also there to hold you if you need it and guide you. And then there's the two leaders that are just making sure that everything kind of, shamans, I guess you call them. Yeah. And they are just making sure that everyone's okay. There's lots of singing, there's lots of music, there's lots of playing instruments. And to be quite honest, the experience started before I even went into the experience. I just went into the room and already I was starting to feel, they call it the grandmother. The grandmother was present and there was already learning. So I don't know whether my brain was just so ready for this, it had just kind of opened itself anyway. But I walked into the room, and as you're trying to find a seat, but you just kind of position yourself as far away from anyone else you possibly can. And especially because there's a male side of the room and there's a female side of the room. And I kind of sat in between these two guys as far away from them as possible. One of them I had this like real warmth to. And I was walking back out the room after putting my, all my bits and pieces down, my duvet to kind of keep you warm and everything like this. And I kind of just turned around and I was just like, went up to the guys, like, the guy that I felt this warmth to. And I've never really warmed to guys. Most of my good friends are girls. And suddenly I'm feeling this warmth towards this guy. And I was like, is it okay if I put my stuff next to you? And he's like, yeah, of course it is. And then I think we both went on our separate journeys, but for me personally, there was a shared part of that with him and forming this bond with him. And this was before anything has happened. I'm kind of still nervous about being there. Some of the people that hold the space, they look like they're doing an ayahuasca retreat. And I was like, oh no, I'm not meant to be here. This is not my, these are not my people kind of thing. I've used to be pretty much kind of hanging out with straight-laced adventurers stroke runners all my life. And then you're kind of put into this space here. Oh, wow, yeah. One of them was, I felt scared of him. He was quite an old guy, but very long hair and kind of somehow contorted features. But kind of fast forwarding through the experience, on the second day, I had a bonding experience with him that felt like he was giving me love from a kind of divine masculine space. And it was love that I felt like I'd never ever experienced before, and it made me burst into tears. And this is again not whilst we were taking ayahuasca.
You were sober,
just sober again, yeah. The next day, but it was just something absolutely magical. Even without the hallucinogenic ayahuasca compound, which is all natural and it's been used by humans for so many, thousands and thousands of years, as quite a kind of part of community, part of coming of age, part of learning, part of therapy. And all these things don't exist in our culture anymore. And dipping my toe into that was the start of this kind of miraculous journey I've been on, that I think I'm still only on level 1. I think there's probably 10 levels and I'm still kind of just scratching the surface. But you get called. Eventually, there's a lot of words said. There's a lot of kind of calming you down. There's some meditation. There's some sound that brings you really into your own body. And the shaman asks you to come up and pours you a cup of this liquid. And you get asked, do you want a small, medium, and large? And, typical Dan, I was just like, just give me the large. You've never experienced this thing before, but and they gave me a large, and you drink it. It's absolutely, your body kind of contorts. It's so disgusting. And then you just go and lie back down again. There's some music played as everyone else. You get, I don't know what you call it, when you have sage and they kind of fan you with feathers and the sage kind of purifies you, and these little sort of things just to pull you into the space. But then that kind of space just dissolves after a while, and you go on a journey, and you see things from the past. You kind of feel, but you don't experience them as you did. You experience them as either extreme love, kind of godly love, or monsters. And the monsters play the roles of those people in your life that maybe haven't been conducive for you having a really full, lovely time. People say they visit past lives and things like this, but for me, it was much more going back into the past. And I think the music is the thing that that takes you places. So, and I think the shaman knows what they're doing, obviously, and they move you into a place where you get to experience the love of the world. And it might be the past love that you've experienced throughout your life, and it can be very, very emotional. And then, but it could be the love of the universe and the love of God, or the love of the grandmother. And then the music kind of changes, and it becomes a little bit sharper and a little bit darker. It might maybe a little bit more bass pulls in, and then that kind of like pulls your consciousness into maybe some of the darker things that are going on in your mind, and darker memories that you don't even remember. And it kind of might bring them up. You've been repressing them, I guess, is the point. And you go back into those experiences, but they're not experiences. You're not experiencing people. You're kind of, maybe they're monsters, or there's just a feeling of unease. There was a song playing where there's this kind of noise, this breathing in the background, and it sounded like a demon to me. And it was, I've heard the song since, it wasn't saying this, but I could hear the demon in the kind of dark depths going, help me, help me, help me. And that was kind of in relation to a negative experience I'd had. It was like the person that may have been inflicting that negative experience was really just wanting to be helped themselves. And it just allowed me to let go of certain things. And it's absolutely beautiful. And you goes on for probably about 5 hours, 6 hours.
And you're just laying there for those 5 hours?
Yeah, I was mostly lying there, but I don't know whether that was in a... Other people got up, and some people kind of moved to the music, and they might... there's a big fire in the middle, and would interact with the fire. And until I was coming right back into this world again, I was just lying down, because it was a bit overwhelming, in all honesty. And I think maybe the people that are able to interact in both worlds, like dancing and looking at the fire or whatever, they're probably a bit more experienced, or something like that. But and then you come back, and it's so much like adventure, because you come back from this wild journey, and the guy next to me, the other guy next to me, the women across the way, you're in this kind of beautiful yurt-like setup, and that touched my soul as well, because it's just like, oh, this is how we're supposed to be living all together. But yeah, and this is the point when you come back, and you've all been on this like magnificent, wonderful, scary, charming, frightening journey, and it's very much like, let's say you've come back from scaling a mountain. You've all had your experiences on the mountain, you've all shared them, and then you come back, and there's a kind of sharing stick that gets passed around, and people have their moment just to kind of say what that experience was like for them. And it's, by the end of it, you feel like they're brothers and sisters that have gone through, or that's at least how I felt. And I think other people did too, and we've stayed in contact in the same way as the people who are doing our adventures keep in contact afterwards, because these are the only people that know. Like, I can talk to your listeners now about this experience, but can you or those listeners fully comprehend what I'm saying? Probably not, unless that you've had a similar experience. And that's the kind of same. It's the same if you've been on a mad adventure. But it was the start of this profound journey of understanding myself, trusting myself, and from there I've been going into doing lots of meditation and things like this. And I have, through meditation, been able to get into these same kind of states of massive amounts of healing, and bringing the shamed versions of myself, which I I'm kind of putting my arm out here as if I'm putting my arm around that shame version, as though they weren't me in the first place. And meditation has caused me to bring those parts back into myself and no longer have shame about them. And, you know, that shame doesn't have to be anything profound. It's just feeling like you're not enough, imposter syndrome, whatever else that people experience. But I've just been able to hold it. But also I've been training as a psychotherapist, 2.5 years into my own therapeutic journey alongside that. And so I think I've had 150 hours of therapy. So all of these things, whether they're the out there ayahuasca experiences, or whether it's just sitting and meditating in the morning, or whether it's going out and meditating with other people, or playing music, or sound baths, float tanks, I've just been on this kind of like, wow, I didn't know anything about myself. I am brilliant exploring the world. I've seen parts of the world. I've seen things that most people would dream of doing. And now this has been a period of exploration of self. And I think I love this kind of concept of like, yes, you can go and scale Everest, or you can swim the Channel, or you can run across Iceland. And other people have done that. Whereas I'm the only person that can set foot inside of me and inside of my own mind and explore what's going on there. And it's been beautiful. It's been sometimes dark, sometimes scary, sometimes completely and utterly wonderful and joyous. But I think that's adventure for you.
I'm just jumping in, but I'll let you get back to the episode in just a few seconds. I just wanted to say thank you so much for listening. It means so much. And if you wouldn't mind making sure that you are subscribed or following this podcast, because it really does make a huge difference in getting more people to find this show. Thank you.
You've brought in a lot of common themes here about the shared collective experience of adventure, and how a group of people can have the same experience together, but ultimately very unique experiences within themselves of what they experience on the same journey, whether that is scaling a mountain or crossing a country or running across a country, for instance. But also what you've talked about for some people could seem so far away from what they think they could possibly do within their own form of journey. You know, taking psychedelic drugs is probably not for everyone. Even certain things like meditation might scare people, and understanding how that works and how you can actually go deep within yourself. So what advice do you give to people who don't want to go to, you know, take the large potion, but are curious about exploring their self?
I mean, I think it's much like anything else. It's there are small steps you can take. There's so many apps out there that could guide you through a 2-minute meditation in the morning. And a 2-minute meditation in the morning is so conscious. You have to be so conscious to say, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to wake up in the morning, I'm going to go downstairs, I'm going to sit on my sofa, I'm going to get my phone and do a 2-minute guided meditation. And just ignore the actual meditation itself. Just having that consistency and that conscious thought in the morning is probably enough. That's the first step. It's just like going for a run. First step out the door. That's the hardest one. And then everything flows from there, because you might sit and do a 2-minute meditation. Like, oh, crikey. Well, everything feels relaxed. And like, I'm a little bit better with the kids this morning. Or I have been more proactive at work because I was able to center myself away. And I did talk about putting an app on your phone, but just not going straight into your phone and being like, oh, I wonder what's going on today. Looking at the news, current climate, bombs going off everywhere and people siding with different sides and being generally unpleasant towards each other. Or seeing social media and whatever else and having your dopamine spikes and everything like this. just that one step can be enough. And then you're like, okay, well, maybe I'll try it a little bit longer, or maybe I'll try going on a group meditation, because I think for me, group meditation is much stronger because I'm such an empathic person that if you're having a great, if you're letting go, it helps me let go. And, whereas if I'm on my own, I can get in my head and be a little bit analytic, and I'm like hyper observant. So, I might be thinking about different bits and pieces, and it's whatever it is. And it doesn't, I think it was at the same time as the podcast last time, and around that time with the experience was, as I was speaking to a psychotherapist, and she was saying, no, it wasn't a psychotherapist, it was a psychologist. And I was just telling her what I was up to, and I was like, I'm on this exploration of life. And I was saying, I'm going to do a silent retreat, and I'm doing ayahuasca, and I'm doing, and I was like, and she did EMDR. I'm like, I wouldn't mind trying that. She's like, Dan, you're doing a lot of things. All of these things need a really big recovery. Like, you need to give a number of months for all this knowledge that you download during these periods, doing these things to get into your body. And she said, what are you doing to soothe in between these things? And I was like, soothe. What do people do to soothe?
Oh, that is so interesting. We can go deep in this because you're someone who's a doer.
Yeah.
And so it's like one thing to the next, to the next, to the next. Mm-hmm. And there's all these dopamine hits of all these adventures that you get. But after a while, that can take its toll, and suddenly you become burned out, or you become in a place where you have to force yourself to soothe.
Yeah.
And it's trying to find that soothing in a natural flow, in a natural state between these things.
Well, I think the steps to break down, I can't number them, but I've seen them. And number 10 is where you start using other things to soothe you. And then, of course, as soon as you start using something else to soothe you, which, I think we talked about Project Awesome quite a lot in the last podcast, and I think we talked about, I had a kind of bit of a breakdown at the end of that. And,
it had taken its toll on you. You'd given so much to the community over years and not had the kind of framework in order to allow some kind of rest within that period.
Yeah. And that message from that lady talking about soothing was just, I don't do anything. I've never done anything. And in fact, I'm absolutely quite the opposite. It's even today, I have a brilliant business partner, Nick. We do the adventures together, but he gets frustration with me, which is completely and utterly, I completely understand it, that I really like starting new things. It's not even continuing a thing that is really exciting, isn't stimulating enough for me. And I want to do the new thing. I was like, oh, wow, let's do something wilder. Let's up the ante. Let's create more fire, more light, more sound, whatever it is that we're putting out into the ether. And so basically I was doing absolutely nothing to soothe. If anything, it was my sports. But I don't think doing sports, especially the way I was doing them, where I was trying to be the best version of myself physically, wasn't soothing. That's also drive. And you do have a soothing moment after it, but if you're someone who addicted to drive, you can experience soothe after you've done a big drive. So that's not actually soothe. And I said to her, like, what do people do for soothing? And she was kind of mentioning some of the things I was speaking about already. And I just started integrating a few of them.
You know what I've learned recently? I had to take, I've taken 2 months off this year. The biggest break and the biggest kind of pause in my life, I think, since being an adult. Clearly, I would probably say I was unwell, that I needed to take this time off. I had burned out last year in early January, took a week off, but that was never enough. And then just carried through an exhaustion through the whole year without really realizing what it was, but just having this awareness that I wasn't turning up as my best self all the time. I just thought it would go away, and it didn't. And then a year later, took some time off over Christmas, wanted to get back into the world in New Year, and then just crashed. Was horizontal the whole day, just feeling really sick. And then that was a wake-up call to say, I need to listen to myself, take some time off, and it can't just be a week, it needs to be longer. I thought it would be a month, it ended up being 2. Very frustrating in that moment, because I'm a doer, and I've got this big cycle race which I'm doing in the summer, which I found out in January, and there's a huge frustration that I couldn't start the prep for that. Like, there was something I could do this year, and I couldn't do it. But after having 2 months off and going through various levels of frustration and sitting within myself, stirring within thoughts, which is a terrible place to be, I've arrived kind of at the end of February, in the beginning of March, feeling better, getting back into training and feeling more refreshed and more alive than I've ever felt before. And I'm now considering, how do I every year find a gap in my schedule so that I can take January off? I'm a creative. I have the luxury and privilege that I can do that. My life comes at a compromise though, in terms of I might not earn as much money, but my God, every year now in January, I'm just going to switch off, find something, somewhere to go, do something that's completely different than what I've been doing for the last 11 months, take time off exercise, take time off work, take time off socializing, all these things which are like your batteries which get depleted throughout the year. And forcing myself to say, how can I sit somewhere and do something completely different that is low energy, that will be quite frustrating in the moment because I'm a doer, but I know after 4 weeks, I'll return into the world feeling a much, much better version of myself. And I owe that not just to the world, but to myself as well.
I absolutely agree. I reckon once you come back into doing things, you'll probably achieve as much in the first month after that time away than you would have done over those 2, because your kind of bright brain's a bit fried and everything like this. And I don't follow many people at all. I'm not really interested in other people, what's going on with other celebrities or whatever these people are. But Yuval Harari is like someone I really, really look up to. And I think he takes 1 month or 2 months off every year just to go and meditate in silence. And I don't do things like that, but I've started doing every Thursday. Every Wednesday night, I pull the plug out of my Wi-Fi and I turn my phone to plane mode, and I just have every Thursday, 1 day a week, where I have no technology. Technology is just non-existent. I get cash out of the bank, so if I need to go and get something, I can pay for it without interacting with the digital world.
That's a beautiful practice.
Oh, and I get more done on a Thursday because there'll be a point where I was like, well, what should I do now? Because and exactly at that point, I would be tapping my pocket, pulling out my phone, and just looking at it. And if there's no messages or emails, which is fairly rare anyway, or you've managed to do all those, I'll go to the news and I'll start consuming the news and going deep into things that I don't really need to go deep into. I think, yes, it's good to be aware of what's happening in the world, but do I need the deep dive into it? And, like that. And so when I had that moment on a Thursday, I was like, okay, well, I may as well do the job that I've been putting off for the last 6 months. Or I'll go out in the garden, I'll just weed a bit of the garden, or I'll do some whittling, or I'll play some music, or, and actually I have started going, this is a practice that just because I absolutely love it. I've been going to Norway in the winter when you can't really do anything because the snow's so deep. And I go to a hut where you heat it with fire and you go and get water from the river if it's flowing. Sometimes it's completely frozen and you have to gather snow and melt the snow in a pan on the fire, kind of the fireplace bit. And there's no access to it. Literally, I take away everything. There's no noise at all. And it's kind of a hard life, but it feels like my body is being pampered beyond what you think is even possible. And you just breathe. And then I start, and when I go there, actually the last time I was there, I wrote 12 chapters of a book that I didn't know I wanted to write. And maybe it wasn't something that's ever going to make it out there, but it was a beautiful practice for me to just sit there with my pen and paper and just start writing a story. And like, you know,
so there's no technology involved in that writing as well.
Yeah, no. I definitely. What would I have had with me? I might even have technology with me, but there's so little electricity. You just don't want to it's not even worth risking it. So yeah, it's amazingly beautiful, and it's something both of those, the Thursday and the week in Norway, are things that I keep tapping back into and thinking, is that the life you want to be living nonstop? And I don't know that yet, because 1 week is very easy to exist in that thing, but in that kind of scenario. But if it was constant like that, would I start going to a darker place because you're not getting the interactions you want? But the fact is, people could come and join me and also have that similar experience. We can go fishing. The lake is kind of probably 3 meters from the house, 4 meters from the house. Go out on the lake, do some fishing. At that point, you're starting to harvest your own food rather than have this kind of concept. Like there's a co-op at the end of my road. I walk up there. I use it like a fridge. So when I need a meal, I go up to there and I just get it. But I'll buy some salmon wrapped in plastic, and I just don't think that's the right. That's not telling my nervous system. This fish wrapped in plastic isn't telling my nervous system to relax because I've got food. Whereas getting the fish out of the water and cooking it on a fire, that's my nervous system is like, oh yeah, this is what we've been doing for 300,000 years. And making fire, that's what we've been doing for 300,000 years. And
within a blink of an eye, in terms of our history,
yeah,
it's all changed.
But
we as humans haven't been able to deal with that change. You know, we feel we're kind of these cogs in the machine, which is operating with the changes of technology, but it's rapidly increased so fast that we're not actually realizing that all this technology and this 24/7 access to the world is actually the detriment of our human being.
Yeah. It's even if you kind of, I know I'm a bit older than you, but it's only in the years of my life, 47 years, that there's been anything like the amount of traffic on the road. And, take it back a few more years, very few people would have actually owned cars. And these cars are whizzing past us at 30 miles an hour. They weigh half a ton. The primal brain isn't looking at that as though, oh yes, that's a car. The primal brain's thinking, well, holy cow, this is something dangerous flying towards me. And our brains are repressing these anxieties, I'm pretty sure. And even, when I was born, there wasn't the same advertising. Shops were just selling stuff. There weren't all these kind of bright lights and shiny things trying to drag you into stores and things like that. And I just think even on that very, very basic level of what happens when you leave your house, most green spaces are getting built on, especially in the UK. And so green spaces tells your primal brain, oh yeah, there's going to be food here, there's going to be water here. Because we love being around green. The color green does amazing things for our nervous systems. Whereas what do we get in the kind of modern day? We get grey and concrete. You can't eat concrete. And so I think our nervous systems are just like completely and utterly whizzing and whirring. And, there's this, somehow technology has made us think that having looking at our phones or watching Netflix or ordering things on Amazon is soothing. And that's what we do. We go out in the world and you're like, oh God, so much. Retreat into house. Yeah. And then you sit on your phone and try and soothe yourself. But that phone is only increasing these levels of anxiety that we all feel. And I'm sure you've experienced this as well. You go away and you're away from all this stuff for a long period of time, whether it's a week in Norway or I'm sure we'll come on to being in shipwrecked on an island. You come back from those experiences and it's absolutely it's sensory overload, and you find yourself just wishing to be back in these simple ways of living, basically.
Yeah. I've always been someone who's needed to escape the city on a regular basis. Like many people, you find yourself in the countryside where it's just calm, quiet, and there aren't people trying to kill you on mopeds and buses and cars. And you can, especially when you can step out into the trails and the sunlit nature. Boom, is always been a lover of trail running, of cycling on the trails, off road. There's a reason for that. Because I just don't fear my death when I'm trying to run along a road or cycle along a road. Yeah. And you're right. It's something that's a little bit subconscious, but when you actually are conscious of it, I do a lot of cycling on roads. And as soon as I'm off road, wow, cortisol levels.
Yeah, exactly.
I think.
And if you can do that with your kind of in inverted commas tribe, that's awesome as well. We're not supposed to be hanging out on our own. Hanging out on your own means death. Hanging out with your tribe means success, flourishing, relationships, safety, health, all that sort of stuff. So all of these things we used to do, I'm moving into my primal age. I'm thinking I've lived half my life in this kind of madness, and I'm thinking, okay, I'm now going to hunt for my food. I'm going to forage for my food. I'm going to live off grid. I'm going to gather water from the river. I'm going to heat myself with fire, and the pull of that life is very, very prominent in my life at the moment. And I'm not really doing too much to progress that, but it's like a build-up of water behind a dam. It's like getting bigger and bigger, and I think some point that dam's going to go. I'm just going to right, chuck my phone in the bin, go and live here, let everyone know who I really, really care about and like. They can come and visit me whenever they like, and just be open, have an open door policy that if you want to come and visit me, that's totally groovy. Just come along. And that just feels wonderful to me.
Well, speaking about being with your tribe and feeling like that is the best way to survive in the world, you have done the very essence of that by taking a tribe away to be shipwrecked on a remote island. This is something that was it's something that you organised yourself.
Yeah.
Tell me more.
So, me and Nick, who I do the adventures across countries with, we were sitting there and we were just talking about life and exploring our wants and needs and interesting things. And then the conversation got onto this idea of being on an island, marooned, like you see on telly. Whether that is, Tom Hanks on Castaway, or whether it is one of these reality TV shows. I've not actually ever seen one of these reality TV shows, but I obviously know they exist, where you kind of get naked and marooned.
Naked and afraid. Yeah.
Naked and afraid, those sorts of things.
You'd be great on that.
I would absolutely love that. Yeah, nudity and being a recluse sounds great. But we were just chatting about it, and we were like, this would be so cool. It'd be so cool because we've both done amazing adventures where we've really pushed our bodies, pushed our minds, existed within this amazingly brutal nature that can exist. And we were thinking, well, at that point, I've always got a lighter in my pocket, or I've got technology so that I can kind of call in and be rescued, or I've got crampons, or, whatever it is. I've always got these things with me. But can you survive without anything, with the clothes you're wearing? And we were like, wow, that would be so cool. You're really kind of riffing off each other and just getting more and more excited. And then reality kind of hits us. And it's like, well, how do you find a remote island to be kind of marooned on? Because who do you contact for a remote island that no one lives on? It doesn't kind of compute in the brain. And then we were like, well, you could buy one. And then you look on the internet, you're like, buying an island, £1 million, probably 10 million, 100 million pounds, whatever they are. And we're like, okay. And it felt like we were boys dreaming of being rock stars or something like this. We're like, oh yeah, it'll never happen.
But I love the fact that didn't stop you.
Well, this is the whole point. It kind of did stop us. We was like, okay, let's put it aside. We've got other things to concentrate on. And this is the beauty of this crazy world, universe that we live in that it was probably 3 weeks after that conversation, and I got an email from the Maldivian tourist board saying they'd heard me on your podcast. And they'd listened to your podcast. Someone in the Maldives had listened to the podcast with me and you talking together. And he said, I heard you on the podcast, and we wondered whether you'd like to be marooned on an island in the Maldives for 7 days.
It's as though they were just listening to that conversation you had with Nick.
Yeah.
That in the pub somewhere, there's these like signals just into the world just went off and spread.
Yeah.
And landed somewhere in the Maldives.
It was like 3 weeks later. And it was just, I was just kind of gobsmacked. When things happen and you're like, oh God, is my phone listening to me? But like, not only is the phone listening to you, it's transmitting it to someone over on the other side of the world. And I was like, and then we had a call. We organized a call. I think it came in as an email or a WhatsApp or something. And then we had a call, and he was like, do you think you'd like to do it? And I was like, hell yes, I'd like to do it. But I'd really like to bring 20 of my mates and experience the whole. I'm massively into tribes. We kind of talked about that, community, all that sort of stuff. We talked about that before. But I just wanted to experience this. I didn't want to experience it on my own. I wanted to experience it with other people. Everything's much more beautiful when it's shared. And reached out to some the adventure people that I know, and got 20 people. And before you know it, we're heading off to the Maldives. And we had 2 days of training with the people from the Maldives. They taught us fishing techniques, how to climb the coconut trees, how to do some weaving with the leaves. We probably didn't do enough because I don't.
Not enough really to survive as a human being.
Yeah, and then they took us down to the atoll. We were it's part of the Maldives not many tourists would go to anyway. There was no other tourists on the plane as we were arriving, and we actually stayed with the Maldivian people on their island, which is the populated one, which is not very populated at all. And just being there was this settling into yourself, because they don't have all the crazy adverts. There's not all the choices of coffee shops to go to. If you want to go and get coffee, there's one place. Everyone goes there. And when I go there, I know I'll meet the people I met yesterday because they'll be going there again. And even on that island, it was absolutely beautiful and transformative in being. And then they take you down. It's probably like a 30-minute boat ride. Like, get off. And there's a bit of a kind of a show of pretending that the boat was sinking. And we had to get off the boat, and we went to shore. And then the boat buggered off. And
what did you have with you?
We had what we were wearing, and we had a few dry bags that we had things like sun cream. I needed to have the sun cream factor ginger sun cream, and we had some mozzie bits and pieces like this, but really that was all. It was the kind of things that we were it was going to be a really terrible time without them. And so that we land, and me and Nick have done a lot of adventures. The people who will come in, they've also done some pretty crazy stuff, but me and Nick, as the kind of people that had been liaising with the guys in the Maldives, we were like, we are not the leaders at this. We're just like, we just want to take part. We want to be part of this. And so we got to the shore, and it was just like, oh, everyone's looking around like, what's going to happen now? And so they decided they wanted to elect someone just to kind of be a leader for the first day. This lady, Kelly, she's a badass. She comes from Alaska, and she was the right person to be leading us. And anyway, she's kind of split us up into groups. One group went exploring. The crazy thing is that on this is miles away from any sort of civilization, yet on the shore there is a lot of plastic being washed up.
Wow. It
was kind of sad to see it, really. It was, when I first saw it, I thought it was sad for us that we weren't going to have the perfect experience. Then I kind of like righted my brain and was like, no, this is sad for the planet. And actually, we were able to utilize some of the bits and pieces. Like there were cushions and things like this washed up. So they were soaking wet and pretty stinky, but some people used them as pillows later on.
That's proper Tom Hanks Castaway. Is.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, we didn't find the volleyball. That's the only problem. But oh my goodness, I'll get to what we did find later on. But yeah. So and then we've got these like steel rods. That was also something that was, we found it on the island, but I think it had been put there for us. So there's steel rods that we could use to stab fish.
Okay.
To spear fish in. A tool, basically. And so at night it's much easier with those because the fish kind of, I don't know if they go to sleep, but they get real chill. And then it's still very, very hard to get them, but it's easier than during the day.
What an experience though, to have to sit there contemplating, if I don't catch something, we have nothing to eat.
Yeah.
And having to go through that process, which I imagine took hours, to source food.
Yes, and you don't get a lot either. And I actually think it might have been better if we didn't have any food, because what we did, if you're fasting, your stomach turns off, and you don't waste any energy in your stomach anymore, and you start utilizing the other things in your body. But we were eating just enough that the stomach kept going. And you felt very, very, very hungry. Whereas when I fast, I've done a few fasts, and I don't actually, after a while, you don't actually feel hungry anymore, but we were just constantly hungry. But we got enough, and we were catching eels. One guy, like this eel, latched onto someone's shoe, and he's having this big fight with an eel. And it was wild. There were some crabs, obviously, but crabs, even the massive crabs about as big as my head, and their claws weren't too dissimilar to my hands. They don't really have that much meat in them. But anyway, we managed, and we built this this shelter, this base, this camp. I like talking about it. When I'm talking about it, I feel like a kid again, going into the woods, and that was what it was. Except for we kind of were a bit more serious about what we were doing, kind of thing. We knew, because we actually knew there was a storm coming in, and so very rare for the Maldives to have a storm, but for some reason there was one coming in, and we knew we had to kind of at least have some sort of covering, because even though it was very warm, even at night, being wet, and if there's a wind, you start getting pretty cold pretty quick. And I mean, we didn't sleep too much, but we got some sleep. We didn't eat too much, but we had enough to eat. And I think it was after 2 or 3 days. It's very much those days that in a kind of more physical adventure, where the group starts coming together. Exactly the same happened with this as well.
So what's that like? Because obviously you've gone through those first few initial days of excitement to the realization of like suddenly a few days in, you're tired, you're hungry. How were the group dynamics from that point onwards?
I think it was pretty. There had some really lovely people on the trip, so it wasn't like. there were moments of tension, because you only have a limited amount of energy each day, and it was really hot during the day as well. But what you get into a rhythm, and as soon as the rhythm was full, because we had a leader the first day, we had a leader the second day. After that, we just became a community, and everyone knew what there was fishing to be done, and there was like repairs to the damage that was done to the living quarters, that was done in the night. And, and actually what happened during the day was we would just sit in the shade all together as a community, and people their brains just started changing. And people who hadn't been creative, we were these doers, these people that would go off and do physical things, most of us. And we're sitting there and we're starting to get a little bit arty, a bit creative. And people started to whittle bowls out of the coconuts. There were people making spoons out of coconuts, people weaving leaves to form plates that we were. So we're now eating a little bit of fish, a bit of eel, a bit of crab, a little bit of coconut off a weaved plate. And everything every day it just became a little bit more comfortable. Of course we were becoming more comfortable with the discomfort, but we were also finding small things. And my business partner Nick, he was trying to make himself a bed, a hammock bed, and it didn't really go very well. But he said that this process, it went from a bed to a table to a drying rack for clothes. And he said this is the first time in his whole life he's ever been able to let go of a definite outcome. It was just like, it's looking more like a table now.
Yeah, knowing that it evolves into something else.
And it was very, I guess it wasn't like painting a masterpiece, but there were 3 stages of creation, and he was happy to move from one to the next. And I think everyone was going through this somewhat, and by the end of it, 7 days in, people didn't want to leave. They would have stayed. They would have stayed much, much longer. And yes, we were happy when we got back to the base camp kind of island and were able to go to the one cafe bar type place. And it's not a bar. You can't. It's a dry country, but grab a coffee, get some butter chicken or whatever. But deep down, I think there was a real longing of wanting to be back on the island, back on the simplicity, and back in that kind of creative, again, community, existing together, waking up together. You kind of roll over and you just like chat to the person next to you, and I just think that's beautiful, and it's really lovely.
I suppose also understanding that everything that you do within that space has some kind of purpose for the tribe. Whereas that sometimes feels a bit neglected in this day and age, where we don't really see the impact of our actions on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah. I think let's kind of frame this quickly in I am aware that we were in a very privileged position to be going to the Maldives to suffer on an island. It's not, this isn't our reality and everything like this. So I am aware that we're sitting in this super privileged position to be able to do it in the first place. But that purpose, the fact that you catch a fish, you aren't just cheering about this. You are cheering for all, because you know that's just a little bit extra, just a tiny little bit extra for everyone else. It's amazing. And I talked about just a moment ago about the things. I was talking about the volleyball. What was the volleyball called with
Wilson?
Yeah, exactly. We didn't find a volleyball, but what we did find when we were out one night was a little white cat. And this cat was just there. It was drinking salt water, and
On this marooned island.
on this marooned island, it was a real castaway. Whether someone had come there before or whether it had, I don't. We're baffled at how it's got there, but it was dying basically. It was drinking salt water. I think this is like a process you go through. You don't drink salt or don't drink salt water until it's the very last moment, and then you drink salt water, and that's the thing that does you in the end. And we didn't do anything with it. We saw it and we was like, oh, and we came back to camp, and then we were all kind of struck with this.
No one thought food.
No one thought food because we're in such an uncomfortable. Oh yeah, food as in eat the cat. There was a lot of banter about that,
Yeah.
but there was. I don't think anyone was, and there really wasn't. There was more meat on one of these measly
It was only 7
eels.
days, not 7 weeks.
Yeah. But we did think food for the cat, because I'm thinking it was a small kitten, so it hasn't even been there that long. And we came back and we kind of felt guilty that we'd just left it to suffer to death. Drinking salt water death, I don't think is a very nice death to have. And we went out the next night thinking, when we find it, if it's still alive, there was one of the girls, Sarah, is a vet, and she was like, it's probably not going to be alive now. But we went out and we were thinking, well, either we need to end its life in a humane way, or we need to bring it back to camp and have it as one of the crew. And we came back and it was sleeping under a bush, and we thought it was dead, but because it was so bony, it really looked a mess, and it got mites in its ears, and it kind of got sores on it and things like this. But and we decided to bring it back to camp and just see whether it could drink a little bit of water and eat a bit of eel, and see whether it would come back into living. And it improved so fast, and it just followed us all around. It didn't actually leave camp. It just stayed within camp. And then we all became very, very attached to it. And I became very, very attached to this little white bundle of fur. And we took it back to the main island because we didn't want to, we'd rescued it, put a bit of food in its belly. We didn't want it to go through the torturous process of dying again. And we took it back and no one really wanted it. And I was like, okay, I'm going to bring it back. So it's coming back to Sheffield in a few months. It's having a few jabs and things like this, and someone's been making sure it gets fed and watered and stuff like this. But it'll be my it's like a real true adventure cat. You hear about them, don't you?
All these animals that you see, like dogs that are stray and their cyclist meets them or something, and it just runs alongside them as they cycle. Those kind of stories.
Yeah, it's exactly that. And it was just hanging out with us while we're having this profound experience. And it became such a massive part of our experience. And really, it was the real castaway. It was the one that really had survived for however long on absolutely nothing, without a spear to get fish and everything like this. So it's a lovely little kind of part of the story. And like, I kind of wake up every morning excited that it's going to be coming back. And
beautiful. I look forward to seeing updates on that.
Yeah.
Has it got a name?
Coconut.
Beautiful.
Yeah. It's white. It's lovely. Yeah.
And so what did you really learn about being part of that tribe, being part of a community, and how that can translate to your life back at home?
I think this is the absolute beauty of the experience, is we went there to survive. And actually what happened is we thrived. And the survival part was actually kind of boring. But we learned we could. If we needed to, we could survive. And then you come back, and it's like we've been talking about previously, is that simple life is absolutely beautiful. And we are thinking, me and Nick, that the next stage of this is that we go out to the Maldives, go to this island, we bring a small community of people, but we don't just stay for 1 week, we stay for a month. And then another group come, they can stay for a month. And then another group come and they can stay for a month. And we slowly build a place where we really, really are truly thriving. And yes, we might bring in from the mainland a bag of rice or something like this that will supplement the food that we'll be catching. But the feeling within every single person on that island was like, it's not I want to be, I need to be doing this for a longer period of time. What happened to our nervous systems in that week was profound, but it was just the start. And being able to spend not just 1 week there, but 4 weeks there felt like this isn't just something great for a community feel or an adventure. This was something that is going to change people's lives in such a profound way, and possibly on the return change the way we all act in society. And hopefully it doesn't become oh god, what's that thing that's on the telly at the moment with Piggy in it, the kids that,
Lord of the Flies.
Lord of the Flies.
Yeah.
Hopefully it doesn't become a kind of Lord of the Flies, but it also taught us how you can interact together in a beautiful way.
Yeah, well, I feel like the beauty of what you're doing is you're getting a certain type of person who wants to do that and has a choice. With Lord of the Flies, it wasn't necessarily a choice. It was just it conveys like literally a certain catchment of the population being shipwrecked somewhere. Whereas what you have is that you've got a very certain person who wants to be that and have that experience. Whereas the real test would be to pick up 20 random people on the street and then put them in that place. That's when you get probably Lord of the Flies-esque. That'd be an interesting experiment.
Yeah, I mean, I see adventures as experiments anyway, and especially when you're bringing people in, especially people you don't know. This is a human experiment, and yeah, I'm just thinking, I'm like the mad scientist of adventurers. It's really fun to do these things and to see what happens to people, because that's what we do in Iceland, and where we run across Iceland, we run across Tajikistan. We've got a new one in Nepal, where we run across the countries. Every one of them is a new experiment, because you've got new ingredients. It's the same pot. You might stir it with the same spoon, but the ingredients are totally different, and the results are, they're generally, I mean, not generally, they're always. This is the thing, is these adventures always end up with incredible communities at the end of it. And is that saying that all humans, when they're put in the right place, thrive? Or is this saying the people that are attracted are people that will thrive? It's probably a bit of both. I mean, I think humans at the very, very deep level they want love, they want hope, they want connection. And when you don't get those things, that's when things fall to pieces.
Yeah, I can see that very much within your kind of running across countries, your business that you have. I feel like put me in that position to run across the country alone, then I will find a way to thrive, but I won't thrive as much if I had the support of an amazing, positive group of people who are going through that same experience, that can uplift each other, to help each other in the mornings and the evenings and the slog in the middle of the day. That's when you face that all alone, you're not going to be thriving in the best place. And I find that so much within the world of the communities that I've been part of for the last 4 years within London, within fitness, health and fitness, is that how much more I thrive and enjoy the experience by being surrounded by people. And I can turn up immediately. I went somewhere yesterday after not feeling particularly great, feeling I probably needed a recovery, and actually probably should have listened to my body, how much I'm feeling today. But was so incredibly uplifted to be put in a place where I just turned up, and then suddenly that whole experience from beginning to end just felt like
It wasn't like no amount of time had passed. Like it was just, I didn't feel like I was putting in any effort.
Yeah.
So lovely to be
In
on
flow.
that conveyor belt. Yeah, that flow of having people to talk to make you bring your best self version out as well.
Lovely.
Your relationship with food is not just and sourcing food has not just come from your desire to be shipwrecked on an island. You also went on your own hunting experience. Tell me about that.
Well, it's a very strange thing because I've been vegetarian until I was 21 years old, and we used to walk past the butchers, and we had to close our eyes and hold our breath and go past because it was so disgusting, and that was my feelings as a child, and but recently I have been eating meat, and I think it's part of going a lot of traveling. I've been in Uzbekistan where they've slaughtered a goat in my honor for being there, and you're like, oh no, I'm not going to eat that, sorry. They only have 2 and one of them is now being given to you. And I think
how to offend your host.
Yes, exactly. And that then became I think that was this kind of start of it all, really, of me eating meat. And then now I'll go to the shops and I'll buy meat as well. And there's always been this little not always, actually. There was a moment. One of my friends lived in Alaska, and she was a lovely human being, and she had another friend who was really lovely. But and the friend told me that this other girl would go off hunting once a year and would shoot a moose, and I was kind of appalled by it. It's like, you don't strike me as a conservative murdering bastard, let's put it that way. And then she explained that she does the hunting, she shoots the moose, they process everything, and then she gives it to all her friends, like, I don't know, 4 or 5 friends, and they've got all the meat that they eat for the whole year. And that moment there in Alaska, I was like, oh yeah, this sounds way better than the stories I've been told by my brother-in-law who used to work in an abattoir when he was younger. And the horrendous thing, he's vegetarian as well because of that. He had that experience and became vegetarian. And like we were saying before, I go up to the co-op, might buy some fish, might buy some meat wrapped in plastic. That's not being an animal, a human, a primal version of yourself.
And I bet if you could see and trace back the history of that animal, where it's come from, let's say salmon, farmed salmon. If you go to a farm somewhere, let's say in Scotland or somewhere like that, wherever it is, and actually see the conditions that the fish are kept in, maybe the conditions that the fish come out of the water in, which I've seen videos aren't particularly pleasant. They're not in their natural state. They're basically in a place where once you pen in animals, that's when you get spread of diseases, and then suddenly all the antibiotics come on in, and it's all these drugs that go into trying to keep this animal into being the best state for our human consumption. It's so far away from what is essentially a wild animal that lives its best life. And I guess if you were to see that, you might think twice about buying that salmon wrapped in plastic.
I think there's just this, and that translates to cow, sheep,
chickens.
Chickens.
Yeah, I think I saw a stat about the millions and millions of chickens are eaten every year in the UK. The vast majority of them are kept in penned conditions, in inhumane conditions.
Yeah, I actually saw a free range warehouse had 12,000 chickens in it. They were just sitting next to it. There was a door that was open, so they could go outside. The chickens couldn't see that because there were so many chickens in there. This is the free range ones. I was like, what? Because I think it's something like, what is it? There's 8 billion people in the world. I think it's something like, and I know it's a lot more chickens exist in the world.
For sure.
And they exist for 1 month.
Right.
They are pumped so full of hormones that they're ready to kill by the time they're 1 month old. And so let's say there's 30 million chickens in the world, but they're only living for a month. And there's another 30 million. There's another 30 million. And so my thoughts is, it's not just about this piece of meat this animal having a terrible experience before it's wrapped in plastic and then put on my plate. It's the hormones that must be going on with, not the ones that we're putting in, the ones where it's like the stress hormone of being kept in such a terrible conditions, put into a transporter or whatever in terrible conditions, and the disease, the meat just isn't going to be as good quality as if that cow, sheep, chicken is roaming the forest. And so you asked me about going hunting. I went on this. I'd been doing training, like online training, so where everything, where you need to hit, what that represents.
What were you hunting?
So I went off and we were hunting deer, and I had to do a practical where I had to show that I could hit a target, and
this is with a gun.
With a gun, and yes, it would be much cooler if it was with a bow and arrow, but I think that might just be like beyond me. But so yeah, it was with a gun, and then we went off, and the guy said like we might not catch anything, but we'll go. Let's go and see.
Where were you?
It was somewhere kind of near the Cotswolds, I think. And the deer are going to be cold anyway.
Yeah, so it's important to actually say that deer don't have a natural predator in the UK. We don't have wolves, and so a culling operation exists across the UK because if they didn't, then there'd be just way too many deer, and they destroy vegetation, they destroy new trees. They are actually quite a detriment to our own ecosystem in their development, because they just are quite they just eat so much of it. In fact, even in London, in our royal parks, the deer have to be cooled, and so they shut the parks for like a month at a time. Where I imagine this is a load of people who go in and have the best nights of their lives just culling some deer. Well, what a job!
Yes, but so let's kind of pause. I want to kind of hold on to that best night of their lives there, because and then let's talk about that later.
No, I just think about the adventure of going into a public park that's closed at night time.
Right.
With your night, because that's probably the safest, because the park is open during the day and they can't shoot it during the day. So during the night, that's when the culling happens. Yeah. So I just see a load of these people, like, once a year they have a month's period of time where they get all their camouflage gear on. They go. I'm speculating what it looks like. They've got their guns with their night vision, and they're just stalking their prey. And I just imagine the excitement that is for them to do that.
Yeah.
Because it is so surreal, like that nighttime kind of journey. But yeah, that's only why I say that.
No, but it's relevant. I kind of thought, so we go off on this hunt, and I wasn't sure what. There was a little part of my head was saying, but there's a little voice in my head was like, "Run away, dear. We're coming for you." Like this, I was trying to tell them with telepathy to run away, because I was a little bit. There was part of me not wanting to do it, and then there's a part of me that wanted to experience it. And I said to myself, if I can't pull the trigger, I'm going to become a vegetarian again, because if I can't deal with that part has to happen for me to get meat. And if I'm not able to do it, then I'm not going to do it. So I wanted to know whether I was exploring again. I was exploring myself. I was exploring my barriers, my abilities, my morals.
And I suppose even pulling the trigger, you would need to understand how you felt afterwards as well.
Absolutely, 100%. And that's exactly it. We saw a few deer, but they were never in a position where you can get an absolutely clean kill, and they won't allow you to do that. They don't want you to shoot it and have it run away, be able to run away. And you have to have they call it a backstopper, where it has to be a big tree behind it, or you need to be at an angle where the bullet's going to go into the earth, because these bullets can go for like 3 miles or something like this. And so we're there. And then they find one that's kind of just, it's on the top of a hill, but there's this big tree to the left-hand side of it. And it just started wandering in, and they're like, "Dan, get ready." They're like really calm. They're calming me, because it's really, really big. I had shot a live thing before when I was probably 11 years old. My friend had an air gun, and we lined up slugs, and we were trying to shoot them off a wall. And I hit one, And I was mortified when I hit the slug, and I really wanted to end. You know, it's been hit by an air pellet, so I needed to end its life really fast. But I didn't like it. It felt really bad. And so my heart rate was going. I was like, you know, breathing very heavily. But you got to remain calm. And it kind of walked in front of this tree, which is going to be an ample backstop. You hit just through the you want to hit through the lungs and through the heart, and that's the cleanest hit you can have. And there's a little muntjac, so it wasn't particularly big deer. And long story short, I pulled the trigger, got it in my sights. It paused, and I had just got this perfect hit, and it just kind of fell down dead straight away. But before I hit it, it just stopped, and it was just started nibbling at the grass. So this deer was just like standing there, eating some grass, and then suddenly its life's over. There was no period in between of suffering, and I think I might have struggled much more with that. But even in that process, I wanted to kind of, it wasn't like a prayer, but it was like I wanted to thank the universe for what it had done. Like, thank you for providing this deer. Thank you for the clean kill. Thank you for the food it's going to provide me with. And every single piece of that deer is then used. I took some steaks home, cooked them the next day. I had a little cry when I was eating it because it tasted so good. And two,
you just imagine the sight of this deer that you saw alive.
Yeah. And now it's providing me food. I wasn't crying. There was no tears of sadness at that point. There was a lot of sadness that I kind of stroked it. And when I was kind of thanking it, and there was no moment. This is why I talked a moment ago about the joy of it. There was no joy. There was no like, yes, I got a hit. There's none of that. Because I was kind of questioning whether I was going to have a, yes, I've succeeded, you know. We like to succeed, especially as driven people, but there's none of that at all. It was very, very, very emotional, and a lot of emotion all at the same time. So I didn't even know what to do with it. All the meat was taken, and the guy who I was doing it with, he kind of shared that out with the people he knows. But I took those 2 steaks home and eating, and I knew that exactly the process that those steaks had. They'd been a deer,
a wild
deer wandering in the woods and minding its own business. And there's lots of rules around the age of them and things like this. So you can only take young ones or old ones, because that's what wolves would have done. You have to. It's a mimicking of nature. It's the young or the old ones that get taken, and it was another. My life is absolutely rampant with really profound moments. And of course, some people doing this all the time, it means nothing to them. But for me, that was a really meaningful thing, to take the life of a living creature. But it's just brought to the very, like, in front of my eyes, the whole process. I hadn't thought about it. When I was buying meat before, I wasn't thinking. I know some parents that lie to their children about what they eat. So they might come home from school and be like, is this a chicken? Because I like chickens. And they're like, oh, no, this isn't chicken, it's pretend chicken. You know, whatever it is, you know, this is just food. And I'm like, wow, that doesn't sound like a great, if the child doesn't want to eat that cute little chicken that it's seen, it shouldn't be.
Well, I mean, there's a whole argument about the fact that society in general is lying about their food. You know, the pretty picture of a farm, you know, which has been held up for decades is far, far, far from true. I mean, a lot of social media now, you can see stuff like that, but only if you are open to seeing it in those channels. But I think it'd be very interesting if people did see, you know, these free range chickens or the conditions that animals were kept in, and understanding that was what they're on their plate. But we are so disconnected from that. Yeah, and it just becomes, you know, push of a button, we get food on a plate, basically.
Yes, well, like I was saying, I go up the road to the shop as my, the co-op is really my kind of, it's like my fridge. I just walk in there and I choose what I'm going to eat. And but it really has made me more connected. Yes, I still go to the co-op and I still buy some stuff from there. But I've been on a kind of foraging journey as well, and I'm getting moderately okay at identifying, I'm getting good at identifying very certain species of things I can forage, from mushrooms to leaves, to fruits to roots. And the guy I go foraging with, he says 90% of his food is foraged. I'm like, imagine that. This is all food that you're gathering yourself.
Yeah.
But again, you need to frame it in, if everyone was to go off and shoot one deer, that doesn't work.
But also, is it about where we prioritize what we eat? And, you know, your chicken, your beef, your lamb but like deer is not that popular, really, venison to really eat. But maybe it could be if more people made that choice to say, okay, I can be more conscious about types of food I'm eating, and, you know, local. I mean, I've got friends who have, you know, connections with their butchers where they can get local venison, which has been cool. So like, that's an option. Like, just small little change to say, I'll eat less chicken, I'll eat more venison.
I like that. Yeah, that's actually what I was thinking because on these culls, I think the deer will just be disposed of often. And so by shooting that deer, I ate a deer, but I didn't eat the cow that was going through the mill, kind of thing. And yeah, it was by far the nicest meal I've ever cooked in my whole life. It was so delicious, so tender. You could tell that the deer was relaxed. It wasn't like tough and gnarly because it's been fought its way through life. It was, yeah. And so, yeah, I mean, isn't that great idea anyway, to go to your local butcher and ask for that venison? And one, it's supporting the locals, which we rarely do anymore. We go to the supermarket and buy most of our food from the mass producers and the big money guys. It's lovely to support the butcher as well.
Yeah. I should also point out I'm vegan and haven't eaten meat for a long time, but I'm not sure how I would feel by going through that same experience, because I understand that, you know, deer culling is an essential part of, you know, the world we live in at the moment. And while I'd argue that including wolves into our kind of natural order would be a beautiful place for our world, at the moment we don't have them. So I think I remember watching a documentary with George Monbiot, who went on his own journey to cull and eat a deer as well. Mm-hmm. And he's a vegan. And one shot he shot a deer, and the next shot he was eating a burger. And I felt quite conflicted by watching that, to understand how I would be in that situation. That, you know, whilst I can accept and appreciate that is something that has to happen, but would I still eat the deer? I don't know. It's a journey within my own self. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. I was also on that same journey, even though I was eating meat before I did it. But there's so many ways to cut this story into different, like if you're eating soy or you're eating avocados or whatever it is, which I assume many vegans will be, the levels of destruction to our planet are on a different level. Yes, the deer died. You can't take away that. It's like I was saying, it's very, very emotional. But having some of the rainforest cleared so that you can grow more soy or avocados or whatever it is.
That is a common misconception with a vegan diet, and I'll just, as someone who's a little bit educated in that world, to understand that so much of the rainforest that's deforested to grow soy is grown to feed cattle.
Oh yeah,
it's commonly misinterpreted that eating avocados or eating soy is actually also doing a detriment to the planet, but actually it's not. It's eating the cattle that eat the soy.
Yeah,
that's been deforested.
And that's actually, I've actually heard that before, but I've still forgotten it. So I am someone that likes to educate themselves.
It's propaganda that you hear that people love to put these arguments out to create doubt within this world. It makes people doubt this kind of a non-meat eating diet. But who's causing that?
Yeah.
The meat industry. They've got products to sell, clearly. Let's talk about, I suppose, one of your more active adventures in this world that's probably less soothing, and that was you competing in the cold water championships.
Oh, yeah.
Which is not everyone's cup of tea, I imagine. Ice cold waters that are about freezing level, cracking ice. But it's something that you've been doing for years. You're well versed in this world.
Yeah, it's just something I think is probably getting on 10 years of doing it, where I don't really care for swimming in the summer. I don't like swimming. Let's get that straight. I used to do triathlon and I hated the swimming part, enjoyed the rest. But I really love dipping in cold water, really cold water. And
that's interesting. That's a really kind of obtuse way to look at this world, and very polar opposite to a lot of people who are like, I'm only a summer swimmer and I won't go into cold water. Why is that? Why is it about the cold?
Well, I think there's probably a whole load of things, because I think it's a really good way to kind of move blood around your body. Like, you get cold and then you get warm again. All your blood moves to your inner organs, and so your kind of arms and legs start getting really, really cold, but they kind of tuck all that hot blood away in your organs and keep that keeps you alive. And then obviously that blood then just like floods again, and it's a kind of, it feels like it's kind of purifying, but I think more than that, there's just a little bit of there's a bit of a rush to it, which is, I think, anything that takes you to a limit, to a limit where you're getting closer to death. When we were doing the cold water swimming champs, it was,
where did this take place?
It was up in Sheffield, in Rother Valley. They had to cut the ice out. They cut out a 25-meter channel of ice and kind of tucked it under the ice. And it was, I think the water that we were swimming in was 1.9 degrees, which is insanely cold. It's obviously, if it was any colder, it would be freezing, like a big block of ice. It's very rare it gets that cold. And ice swimming is any temperature from 5 degrees under. But you get this, if you were to jump in and you're not used to it, you're probably going to be dead in probably 30 minutes or so. I don't know. I'm making that figure up, but you're definitely moving towards death. And then you get out of the water and you're still alive. And I do think this is the case with a lot of adventure, a lot of crazy things people do. The edge towards death, and then you come back and you're like, and it makes you feel more alive. It's a bit like if you're happy all the time, that doesn't mean anything, because that then becomes your base level. So you need to experience sadness and happiness to feel the joy of the joy. And I think to feel alive, life is very easy for us. And we have got lots of things in place, which is brilliant to stop us getting close to death. But it's not very human not to go close to death. And so to have this experience and then come back, I think you feel there's just a moment where you are feeling very much alive. You'd be crazy to do it on your own. So you're always with people. Again, what you got there, a little bit of community, people going through hardship. When you're in the cold water, your brain is not thinking about the emails you've got to do, because you're desperately trying. It feels like it's crushing you. It's so cold. It's like being in a vice gripping you. And at that point, you're not thinking about emails. You're thinking about survival. And
how do you get past that pain, right? Because that's the bit that gets me. Like, I feel like there's various levels to cold water swimming, right? And for me, and a good bit of advice for anyone who kind of wants to dip their toes into it, is that I always say, just get your feet in first, and then just stand there and wait. And then you'll know, without having to know what temperature it is, you'll just know what it's doing to your body. And if your feet are in pain, then it's cold. But if your feet go, oh, that's a bit chilly, but then after 30 seconds, it's fine, then it's probably likely that you can get your whole body in without it being too much of an experience that's going to be, painful for you. But there's been times when, I've got into the swim and it's just, you just can't escape that feeling of pain across your whole body. Let's say your arms, your hands, your chest, everything. And yes, I know that if you can push through, you get to a place of like solace where that just disappears. But finding that place, having to go through, let's say 3 minutes or so or something, just to reach that place can be very, very, very difficult and take a long time.
Yeah. It's just like anything though. The more you do, the more, because it's like if you've never been for a run and you go for a little jog and you start breathing heavy breathing is getting closer to death. Like I can't breathe right now. And you have panic. Like people, when they go on their first run and they haven't run for ages since they were kids, they feel like they're dying. And it's the same with this. And your brain, they're just electrical impulses, and your brain adjusts depending. And so my speed at relaxing in the water will be much faster because my brain's done it enough times. Those pathways have been made, and it's really fun. It's really nice. And I do it with my sister. And what a great way to just connect with my sister, kind of screaming in the water.
Yeah, what does it involve, the Cold Water Championships?
So yeah, that's we entered the 50 meters. I think we did 50 meter.
And this is a 50 meter slice of a lake.
Yeah.
This is a very natural 50 meter. It's not you're in a pond or a lido or something.
Yeah. Yeah. So you get in, we actually entered the relay. There was 4 of us and we had to do 50 meters each. And that was actually front crawl, so you have to have your head in. That's the bit. That's for me is I'm still not quite at the level of some of these people. So we did this 50 meters. We got out. We were shaking uncontrollably. You're feeling a little bit dizzy because it was really extreme. This was really extreme, and it was way beyond what we'd normally do, because you've got your head in and everything like this, doing normal front crawl, and you feel a bit dizzy afterwards, and there's so many people making sure you're safe. You're like people checking you as you get out of the water. There's loads of lifeguards all around, and I think obviously they heightened it because in the UK we don't often get water temperature that cold. I don't think anywhere in the world. I think the water in Antarctica, in the Antarctic, is 1 degree. So is it 1 degree less is the coldest place on Earth, But there were people there. We swam 50 meters. Some people swam 1 kilometer in it. And they're not all, obviously you have a little bit more weight on you. It makes you a little bit warmer.
It's just in skins without a wetsuit.
In skins. And
just a hat on the head.
Hat on the head. That's all you're allowed. Swim costume and a hat on the head. And not a woolly hat. A swim cap.
A regular swim hat. Yeah.
So and
gloves.
No gloves, no booties. That's illegal in the champs.
Okay.
But these people are doing 1 kilometer, and they are just. You look at them, and they are just normal people. And one of them was wearing a Great Britain dry robe, and I was like, "Oh wow, I like that dry robe. Where'd you get it from?" He's like, "Well, win the race, and you might." Qualified
Great Britain
to compete,
Cold Water Championships.
Yeah, and then you might go
global.
Finland or wherever or Canada and do these competitions. Yeah, I actually won my age group.
Well done.
But there was only one person in my age group, and
first and last
in my age group. But in the grand scheme of, because there's a lot more women do it, because I think women are tougher than men as a general rule, especially with cold water.
Interesting.
And of all the men, I was last. In fact. Of everyone, I was last.
Well, of all the people who turned up, yeah, but the people who didn't turn up, you beat all them.
Yeah, I beat all those guys.
That's what
all those suckers.
Think. In every race, even if you're last, you're still beating everyone who didn't turn up that day.
Yeah. That's my dad. My dad used to say that to us when we were racing. It's like, you can only beat the people in front of you. And really.
It takes lots of guts to turn up to something like that.
It does, yeah.
I've had my own journey into cold water swimming recently in the last few years, and I'm reconnecting with the sea. Have such amazing experiences with the coastline of the UK, and I think it's a brilliant place to find peace and tranquility and have experiences which are so profound that are, like some of the best wonderless experiences that you chase across the world you can have here on the coast of the UK. And I wrote about one recently a few weeks ago when I randomly met a guy on a bike ride, and within chatting just learned that he also suffered from some of the harder life chapters that I've had, and we related, and I knew just to send him an invite to what I was doing later that evening, which was going to the sauna with my sister for the moonrise sauna session. And then he said yes to this random stranger he'd met, and then we were giggling like little kids running into the sea at low tide. And there's something that I've learned about what it takes to get stripped off and then run into the sea that is kind of bringing you back to being that child again, and how young and carefree and how at peace you are with the world when you just don't have, all these pressures of life put on you.
Isn't it interesting? You're answering your own question about why you might do it, and I didn't touch on that but it's just so silly. And you go to the beach, and let's say you're in April, an English beach, loads of kids playing in the sea. They're playing in it for ages, and yes, they get cold at the end of it. None of the mums and dads are in, but here we are as adults running into the sea, screaming, and we're just tapping back into being kids again, isn't it? And isn't it really fascinating? I do it with my sister. You do it with your sister. And there is
she doesn't go into the sea like I do.
Does she not? Yeah.
No, but she gets me to the sauna. She might pop in, to be fair to her, yeah. But with this new friend I made, he'd never done a sauna before, a seaside sauna. So this is his first experience, and he's older than me. So fair play to him. And he was just, cold water dips is quite a big thing to be doing, quite a scary thing if you're not used to it. And, I'm quite used to it, and I'm kind of, I know it can be uncomfortable, but I know where those levels of comfort fit. And, I know it's uncomfortable initially, but you feel amazing afterwards. So I've gone through that experience. And there were these like cold plunges, which are always a little bit warmer than the sea. And this would have been March, maybe, I think early March. So the sea temperature is a little bit chilly. Thankfully, this is the South Coast, so it's a little bit warmer than the rest of the UK. But I wasn't really fussed about going into the sea that day because I knew it would be cold, and the tide was out quite far, so it would be a long run. But we do the cold plunge, get back in, have a chat with our sauna clan. There's this other girl, and she's like, I might go into the sea. And I was like, if you're going to the sea, I'm going to the sea. And then my friend was like, okay, well, I'll come to the sea. And it's that tribalness of like being together and having that shared experience. And then this girl just launched herself running into the sea. So suddenly I was like trying to catch up with her to like be like, well, I want to make sure that I'm there to have that experience as well. And then suddenly she goes head first into the water. And it's like suddenly like, even though it's cold in the cold plunge, I'm going to do the same because I see you're doing it, I'm doing it. And then that just kind of this like chain of inspiration from one person to the next. And suddenly my friend is in there as well, just like head plunging into the water. And the most beautiful sunset, pastel skyline, one of like in the top 10 experiences I've had on a beach because of just the natural world just all coming together to be there. And I wrote about how these experiences exist in our day-to-day lives. This was just a regular Wednesday for me. Mm-hmm. But had I not been attuned or curious enough to find that moment, then I wouldn't have done, I might not have chatted to my friend on this bike ride.
Something really interesting just struck me as you're talking there about you talking to this friend and you shared, a few shared hardships. And the other thing you don't know is that person, I'm not saying this is true, but they've had some hardships and they could be on a spiral, like especially men and, our age, a little bit older, a little bit younger, whatever. They could be on a spiral, and you having that conversation with him and then inviting him there and then him having this connection diving into the water. I think there are kind of therapeutic opportunities everywhere, and they don't have to involve words. They can just be involved a shared experience. And if you are open to those things and you are open to opening them for other people as well, it's not you're not pulling him through the door. You're not saying, oh, you're a wimp if you don't come in the water. It's just like, I'm going if you want to come. That's totally groovy. And this girl did exactly the same to you. She was the one that kind of triggered it in the first place. And these moments may be having, you don't know, insanely profound effect on people's mental health in a time of mental health crisis. And I just think that's no, that just kind of struck me, and it just felt so beautiful. This kind of dominoes of her going in, you going in, he's going in, and it actually all started because you talked to someone on your bike ride. That's beautiful, isn't it? And I think we were talking a little bit before, and you had that opportunity to kind of whiz past him because you've kind of been training for your
I could have. I said I could have been one of those cyclists that would just be like, "Sorry, I'm training. Bye." Hi and bye.
But something made you have a conversation.
Well, I know so much from my own adventures that the beauty happens when you stop and pause and follow curiosity, right? And I will always chat to strangers to find out what their story is and whether that'll open doors. You know, sometimes it doesn't, sometimes it does, and you can have the best experiences on your adventures by the people that you meet, not necessarily the places that you travel through as well.
Absolutely.
You've had this as well.
And I think this sums up our whole conversation. The stop and pause. Just stop, pause. Whether we're talking about me stopping and pausing about thinking about the food that I put on my plate, or whether we're stopping and pausing thinking about the time on the island, or stopping and pausing in that precise moment about a cycle ride. Magic happens when we stop. And if we continuously on drive, marching around the city trying to get to the next place, you are only living one part of life, and there are many parts of life that a stop and pause can absolutely trigger and make wonderful.
You're right. Yeah. It takes guts to do that as well, I think.
Yeah. It does
because it's not a guarantee that it'll lead to anywhere.
No.
So you have to just, put that thread out there and see if someone's going to take it. And most often they don't. But you got to keep on putting that out there and face that rejection in life when you're putting yourself out there, trying to find someone with energy.
Yeah.
And you have to just trust that eventually you'll find that person that the two of you can just have this uplifted experience together. I think that's a beautiful thing to do, and I'll never stop doing that. I suppose it always gives hope because, I was on a group cycle the other weekend and just cycling down a trail, and a dog walker to the side was off the trail, an old lady. We'd done nothing to her. She was off the trail with her dog, and as we were just cycling past, she just shouted out, "I hope you all fall off." It was just such a devastating thing to hear someone say, knowing that you hadn't done any action for that to be warranted. That she clearly had gone out with this prejudice against all cyclists.
It's a sad state to live in.
And so you get those people in the world, but you just know that you just can't focus on that. And, all I could say to her is I wish you the best of days.
Yeah.
Have a great day. Just be as polite as possible. But it's not worth wasting your energy and time on those people. And I've learned that in my life as well. I want to explore some themes we've talked about in this whole conversation, actually. There's probably two things we can talk about. At the very beginning, you mentioned something which I wrote down because I think we relate, and I think we're the same kind of person in this sense. And you said a lot of your friends are girls, and I have actually the same kind of experience. And although I have some great guy friends, I've just had a natural affinity to having a strong kind of female friend in my life over the years, and that has evolved from different people in different stages. And I've always just felt more comfortable chatting with girls. I think I grew up with 3 sisters in the family, but I don't think it's down to that. I think it's fundamentally about I was bullied as a kid, and 95% of the people who bullied me were men. So I've always felt like on the back foot chatting to men because I always feel like I'm being judged. There's probably a lot more I could explore within why that is, and I don't think I know the full answers. But I just sometimes find some conversations with men a bit dull.
Yeah.
With certain types of men that I meet, and for whatever reason, I can just, have better conversations, I think, with women. I'm aware of that. And I also saw a clip online of the TV show Scrubs. I don't know if you watched that.
No.
No. Okay. It was a big part of, I suppose, my kind of young adult world growing up as late teenager and in university. Scrubs is a sitcom about doctors in America, with the lead character JD played by Zach Braff. And I watched this clip of Zach Braff playing JD at the opening of an episode. It's one I can probably quote, and it's not many words in it, but I can, I will describe it in quite detail now. He's sitting in a bath. He's got his hair tied up in a towel like women do. And he's got candles lit and he's singing Africa, Toto Africa. And he turns up the volume. And as he's singing, he reaches to a tub of this like bath material. And he says, mango body butter? And he dips his finger in and then he tries it. And that's always been a clip that I've always loved from that sitcom. But I rewatched it again recently because Scrubs has come back. They've brought the cast back after a long hiatus. And it really resonated me because I saw how much that character of JD, this man who was so in touch with his feminine side and his love for being a little bit different to what was a traditional tough guy image, a complete polar opposite, who had a best friend, JD Turk, who he would often say and declare his love for. And it was so really interesting to retrospectively see that and be like, wow, so much of who I am as a person has been framed by seeing a character on a TV show that said, this is who I can be, this is who I am, and that's fine, that is allowed. It's okay to be a guy who's not this tough guy, who doesn't want to be doing manly things and watch football, who actually just is a bit more in touch with their feminine side. And your quote about just having more girlfriends in your world just resonated with me in my little world, but also about what it means to be a man in this modern day world as well.
You're opening there's a lot going on in my brain when you're talking about all this, and I've got this kind of, I've got a big beard, bald head. I've been into adventure sports. I've done some crazy things, physical things, and it's kind of alpha, like an alpha-y. I was always like, wheel Dan out if you need to fight the school next door, because I had that kind of masculinity to me. But I don't really think that's my strongest thing. I would say my kind of divine feminine is way more, like I'm way more into emotions, into like deep conversations. And in all honesty, I used to go to the clothes shop, like me and my sister were going shopping with my mum. I'd look at the girls' clothes and I'm like, God, they're so radiant. They're all like ruffles and
the colours.
Laces and the colors.
Yeah.
And then you look to the men's side and it's like, oh, I can have cream, beige or black. And you're like, that just wasn't me. And even as a very young kid, this is when before in the house that I was born in, which we only lived in for 6 years. So within those 6 years, I used to put on my mum's clothes and like dance around the house. And so there's definitely other sides, but growing up in the 80s and 90s, it's probably something that was a bit squished. And within this kind of emotional mind body exploration that I'm going through, I'm very aware of my alternative side. And I've always been a bit alternative, but I was desperately trying, especially during, I guess it was during the 90s, my senior school years, to try and fit in. But it was almost like the more I tried, the more wacky I became. And I also had I was very, very lucky that I was always very, very strong and very good at sports. And that was just like a life raft for me through those years, because I was not very good. I didn't really say much at all. And so as soon as people became a bit sharp of tongue, I really suffered. And so I also went through those kind of hardships that you went through. And I was at a grammar school, so it was all boys school. Maybe that has something to play in mine as well. But I think even at junior school, which was in my normal kind of mixed school, I was still, I actually had male and female friends at that point, so it was probably more normal. And then you go through senior school, and that there's this toxicity that around masculinity, and it's if you speak to a man on their own, they're more open to having a conversation, more like what the conversation we're having here. But as soon as you put men together, they might. I've got people that I talk about. We have beautiful conversations about emotions, feelings, the world, and put them with a group of other men, and they start talking like, "Hey, strippers," it's just stuff like that. And I was like, where did you go? You've just become this like, almost like a cartoon character of a man, and that that definitely happens with women as well. But I think because there's a distance between me and women in that we aren't the same. So it's okay to be different already there. Whereas with men, it's less easy to be different. And I have always been different, but it's definitely, it's something I'm looking at. The first experience of me going in and having that moment with the guy in the ayahuasca circle, it was like, wow, this is, and I was like, I'm having an emotional response to a man. And at that point, I'm like, what kind of emotional response is this? And is it a sexual response, or is it a friendly response? Because I've not really experienced these things before. And then, and so that's something, then it's like, okay, this is just more learning. I'm just more learning about myself. And okay, let's just keep an open mind to sexuality and to how you want to dress, how you want to be. And that's just like everything else. I'm still in exploration mode. But yeah, it's we live in a weird world. And the what I'm seeing, I've only seen the trailer of the Manosphere. Have you seen that one?
The Louis Theroux,
yeah. Because I was thinking, the youth of today might bring everything back, because we went through this toxicity of don't cry, don't show any emotions, kind of be controlling, like be a man, and that's been very bad for us. And I was thinking, well, hopefully the youth are experiencing something completely different. And yes, I've got a nephew who's 19. And so I'm kind of like, I always go back into his head, and I'm kind of thinking about how he's going to deal with life, the struggles of life and everything like this. And I started seeing that manosphere and those guys that are preaching incredibly toxic masculinity to these young boys, impressionable boys. And I was like, oh no, the next generation isn't the one with this. Hopefully there will be a time when things become a little bit more pleasant, but it doesn't feel like it's happening right now.
Yeah. I suppose that's why it's important to celebrate being your most authentic self, and for people like yourself to shine into this world and demonstrate what it truly means to be a man.
Yes, but I haven't been doing that completely. Like, I definitely have been filtering what I might say on a podcast. Like, would I have said a few years ago that I like to wear my mum's clothes and dance around the house when I was a kid? Maybe not. But the other things this has actually been happening for a few years. One of my friends, Bo Carter, she has a fashion show, and she really, she wants it to be very, very open to everyone. And I'll very often be wearing either very flamboyant masculine outfits or feminine outfits, and going down the catwalk wearing these outfits. There is rarely a moment where I feel more at home is wearing massive high heels, something short showing off your legs, and something radiant in color. and style and flamboyance. And I love that one night a year that little part of me shines. And
good for you.
Yeah.
For embracing that and just being your most authentic self.
Yeah, really beautiful.
The world needs more of that, for sure.
Yeah, I agree. We all need it. I need more of it.
I want to close. Thank you very much for this amazing conversation. But to kind of talk a topic about self-love. And now that you've kind of can look back on this journey that you've been on, is understanding what that journey has looked like for you. Not just in the recent years, but over decades.
Well, I don't think there's been self-love previously. I was working off other people's. I judged myself on what I saw in someone else's face. And so if I could make you look like you're having a great time and be smiling and happy, that was my greatest indicator that I'm doing okay. I'm surviving. Yeah, I'm doing a good job here, or, I'm living my life, or whatever it was. But that would sometimes wouldn't be present. And I am nowhere near, I'm not even close to actualizing full self-love, but I am very much on the path, and I'm very much in a different place to where I was in, that I do try and consider myself. And it's very difficult when you've been looking at what pleases you, because you actually, within that, you lose yourself completely. And maybe I've loved doing these adventures, especially the early ones where I was going off solo, because there was no one around me. And so there's no choice but to do you. And but when I've been kind of building these communities and things like that, I've been the reflection. And my job right now is to keep coming back to me, and to try and find me, even to try and find the things that I want and the things that I need, and to give myself permission, even to give myself permission to do what I want to do. But even more than that, give myself permission to offend someone. The whole hunting experience, there was no way I would have done that a few years ago, because I didn't want to offend. I didn't want to offend someone. Someone like you, who we've been in touch for probably getting on 15 years or something, and you're a vegan, and I don't want you to think that I'm an animal killing, animal murdering, selfish prick. But that's not what I was going to be.
And that's not the whole story.
And I've been absolutely blown away, actually, because I put a few posts on social media about it. And there's a video of an interview I did around it and all these sorts of things on YouTube. But I was so concerned. I did it anyway, but I was concerned about what the backlash was going to be, because I'm not used to backlash. And the amazing thing is, there hasn't been a backlash. No one has given me grief about it. And people like yourself, maybe, who are vegan, have actually been interested in this process. A few people that I've talked about it and they've asked me to stop talking about it because it was offending them. And that's in person. But it's very much that kind of, if you just surround yourself with people that are saying the same things as you, it really becomes an echo chamber. And I would say, for those people that didn't like me talking about it, because they didn't want to hear about a death of an animal, that it's probably not a bad thing just to hear it and test test those boundaries that you've laid down, and be like, it's great. It's like, okay, yeah, this made me even more sure I'm in the right position as a vegan. But I think to kind of close things down and not allow conversations about anything. And this is one of these big bits. You talk to me, you ask me about self-love, and you've got to love every bit. And we all have all the emotions. It's not just the happy bit that's celebrated. There is the the sadness, the anger. And that's probably on a daily basis to some level. Like, I'm not having massive highs every day, and I'm not having massive lows, and I'm not having massive anger moments. But if someone continuously is stepping past a boundary, which I never used to maintain those boundaries, you need anger. You need anger for a moment to say, get back. And I have a boundary there, and you are walking across it. And without that, without allowing anger, which is something I thought anger was evil. And it's not. It's human. And it's normal. And that anger is the thing that maintains my own integrity. If someone, and I probably allowed people to walk all over me my whole life in a kind of one form of that. And now I'm like, oh no, you don't need to do that. And I probably haven't had to use it, but I'm aware that I have boundaries now. And if they are stepped across, I'll be just like, oh, it's okay, just move back a little bit, please. And I'm not talking about physical ones. I'm talking about, it could be physical ones, but it could be emotional or, whatever it is. Yeah.
There was something I saw on social media this today, actually, which I think sums up, what I've been learning about self-love. And it's the knowledge that you are enough. It's a simple thing. I think as a man, you thinking about self-love, you kind of can be a bit confused as to what that really means. And even saying you're enough, what does that really mean? But it's, for me, understanding that probably recently in my life, I probably have been putting too much of myself out there, too much energy into situations, believing that should be the external version of myself that people know and love. But actually, they don't need that in order to accept me for who I am, that I can just turn up as a much more low level of Tom and actually probably even be a better version of myself because I have the energy to stop having to overperform in certain situations. And I'm someone who likes to host, or I'm someone who's like the organizer of events, this kind of like building a community thing, right? Mm. But it's exhausting being that person all the time sometimes. And I've, had to really rein in my own energies. Clearly suffering from burnout last year was a key indicator. But it's understanding that I can probably be a better version of myself without overextending if I'm just happy sitting with who I am. Because I'm not thinking about making this experience amazing for someone else. And then suddenly my mind is occupied on so many other things of trying to please someone else. Actually, sometimes just turning up and being like, hey, it's just me. Probably is better for me and better for friends as well.
Yeah, and for the right people, I think turning up, because if you're not always going to be tip top. So if you're feeling a bit bum and someone says, how you doing? You're like, oh, good. That's doing a disservice to them. And I don't think everyone's ready for it. But the fact is, if someone asks you how you are, let's give them a true answer. And just say, oh yeah, this has happened, or just for some reason feeling a little bit gloomy today. And I think that's just a gift. For you to be honest with me is so much more beautiful than you giving me a version that you think I need to see. Because I think I might not consciously realize you're performing for me, but I suspect my body does. My mind does somewhere along the lines. It's like, oh, something's not right here. Something's not right here. The way his eyes are moving indicates that he's feeling a bit bummed, but what he's saying is saying that everything is fantastic and I'm just so excited to be here. And I think you do a disservice to me if you are performing for me. And let's get this straight. That's what I've been doing for a long, long time. And I'm still doing it, but I'm trying not to. And I'm trying to offer my authentic self and trying to bring as much as me as possible into the room, not just on conversations like this, but just every day, just chatting to people and just being for a little dip. And have honest conversations. And honest conversations, I actually I'm coming down here and I'm so excited about talking to you because I know we're going to have a really good chat and you're going to allow me to go anywhere I like. And there's not going to be doors that are closed or emotions that aren't allowed here. And it's a kind of privilege to have a conversation like this where we've just spent a few hours chatting and we've not looked at our phones. We've been really going inside ourselves and showing each other parts of ourselves that we wouldn't maybe show to too many people. So it's just a privilege to be having conversations like this with you, but like on a micro level with everyone else I meet at any single point.
You never know the impact that has on someone else. A bit like what you were saying about my interaction with my friend. And had he not shared a little bit about how he was feeling that day, I would never have known that the best thing to do would have been to send him an invite for that evening and open doors for him.
And the real beauty of it, even beyond that, inviting him into something really lovely, was him saying how he was feeling, honestly, gave you an opportunity to talk about what you were going through, honestly. What a gift that is to give to someone.
But I feel like I needed to have gone, had I not gone through my own journey and had the hardships of life, which were, in a similar vein or, years before on a similar journey to him, then I might not have known that the best thing to do would be to open up. You get, you can sometimes open up to some people and then they just kind of like retreat.
Yes. Some people aren't going to want, and it's a risk. Just like you were saying, It's a risk every time you do it. And there's some people are going to retreat from it and not be ready for it. But okay.
I do from my own experience of like, okay, I've been in your place years before. I know the exact thing that I needed back then. And that was for people to open doors for me to say, hey, come on in. Like, you're not alone.
Yeah.
And it's a small little thing that I could have done that I needed back in the time when I was going through a similar place that he was in. Yeah.
And by doing that, you're saying to him, I heard your words. I see you. It's okay to be you. It's that acceptance. And you are not only accepted, you are so much enough that I'm going to invite you out to a sauna. That's super mega cool.
Yeah. And I got a friend for life from that. I hope so anyway.
Win-win.
It's been absolutely amazing. Thank you for sharing so much of your journey and being open and honest. And I hope some people have been inspired to go on the journey with their own self, in whatever form that takes for them.
Yeah. If the listeners take anything, it's just to be you, delve into it, find that deeper version of you.
Don't be afraid to pause.
Damn right.
Thanks so much for tuning in. If you want to find out more information about any of the guests, please check out the show notes where you'll also find links to things mentioned in the conversation. And if you've enjoyed this episode, please take a look through the past recordings. There's so many more incredible stories for you to find. And I can't wait for you to enjoy them. Thank you.